Roki Sasaki will start game 2 in Japan. What can we expect from Roki this year? Rookie of the year bust? Let's get into it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Locked On Dodgers, and this is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everyday or by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and getting notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube like we are here on Tuesday night. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder. And we are Locked On Dodgers. We've been doing this for 6 years, going into year 7. We've been covering the Dodgers for over a decade in our own ways, and we've been watching the Dodgers for a little bit longer than that. And Jeff, Roki and Ricky are probably going to get me tied up throughout this entire year, but it just works so well that Roki Sasaki will start for the Dodgers game 2 in Japan, and Roki Sasaki will probably be a betting favorite for Rookie of the Year in most betting sites.
Yeah, he's definitely the Rookie of the Year, and possibly the Rookie of the Year. He pitched his last Cactus League game on Tuesday. Looked really good. Went 4 innings. Looked sharp. After the game in his little media scrum, he was predictably a little bit hard on himself, just because most great pitchers do identify more of the things that they wish they had done better than especially in a spring training start. But
only 2 strikeouts. How dare you?
Yeah, but I only saw one of the strikeouts. I was watching my son's game, so I was just watching the game on my phone. But the one I did see, predictably, the batter missed the ball by about 2 feet, and it's one of my favorite things, watching this 23-year-old make major league hitters look ridiculous with that splitter. But his point was, I'd rather have those things happen in my last Cactus League start than my first regular season start, and I'm with him on that. And then we did get word after, like you said, that he will start game 2 against the Cubs, which is kind of it's technically news, but it's also what we expected. Basically, if Roki wasn't starting that second game against the Cubs, that would be the news, because Dave Roberts told us very early on the hopeful plan is for Roki to start that game.
Yeah, the Dodgers are leaning a little bit into the pageantry there. Obviously, if it was based on complete merit and the way the hierarchy of the rotation goes, it'd probably be Blake Snell and Yamamoto. But, there's no reason to not get Roki in there when they can, especially considering that, Otani will be in the lineup. Yamamoto pitches game 1. Like, they'll get all their Japanese players in the game. Shota Imanaga starts game 1 for the Cubs. And say Suzuki's the position player, so like all the Japanese players that are on these 2 teams will be in action. And yeah, for Roki, it's just we weren't sure entirely. Obviously, we were very excited when the Dodgers, he chose the Dodgers and signed with the Dodgers. But we did try to settle expectations a little bit of what kind of player he is, or he's not as refined as maybe some other guys that come over from Japan. And now we kind of got ourselves excited a little bit after seeing him in action, seeing that splitter in action, and now you can talk yourself into, okay, Roki will be all right. I'm sure there'll be ups and downs just like with any rookie season, but I feel better than I did when they first signed him, and not that I didn't feel good then, but I think seeing everything on display is like, okay, he's going to struggle sometimes. He might not have all his pitches sometimes, but he has the stuff to be able to compete.
Yeah, I think I've decided that my version of tempering my expectations is to expect him to be Rookie of the Year and not hold him to the standard of expecting him to be the Cy Young Award winner. That's as far as I'm willing to go in tempering my expectations, because stuff-wise, he's ridiculous, and he's only going to get better. Like you said, there will be hiccups along the way, but pretty much every Rookie of the Year season has hiccups along the way. Probably Mike Trout in 2012 might be the one example of somebody who didn't. Everybody else, when you win Rookie of the Year, you still have your hiccups, and the fact is, I think he's going to be like really, really, really good.
Yeah, and well, from what we've seen, there's going to be questions about a third pitch or getting through the lineup, more than two times, and we'll see how the Dodgers decide to handle him. Obviously, he's only going to pitch once a week. That's already one way they're deciding to handle him. It'll be another one of how much they let him pitch. You think about Yamamoto last year. Yamamoto was a little bit older, a little bit more established, and even then, like the one game he did extend himself a little bit. He ended up getting hurt and he ended up missing a few months of the season. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to operate that way. I know I saw not directly related to this, but Clayton Kershaw talking on Al territory, I believe, kind of saying how the Dodgers might go back and or change their ways when it comes to the young arms and let them throw a little bit more in the minors rather than bring them along so slowly. So I don't know if that's in the mind for Roki as well as like maybe not obviously not 100 pitches every time out, but maybe not babying him and cutting him off at 75 pitches. Maybe finding that medium of just every start is its own day.
And I think part of the benefit of the 6-man rotation is that you can let each of those 6 guys go a little bit deeper when they do go, because they do get that extra day of rest. We've talked about how the Japanese pitchers are used to pitching once a week in Japan, but they're also used to pitching 100, 110, 120 pitches in those games. And so I do kind of expect, obviously, not probably next week in Japan, a little bit too early in the season there. There's always a ramp up period, but yeah, I really do expect these guys to regularly cross the 100 pitch threshold, and not let that be some magic barrier like it sometimes has been in the past, because like I said, that is one of the benefits of 6-man rotation. It helps you save your bullpen, factoring all those benefits of Ohtani not counting as a pitcher, and so you're already getting the benefit of the 6-man rotation. I feel like that is one of the ways that they are going to benefit from this, is that the bullpen will be more rested, because Blake Snell's going to throw 110 pitches in a lot of his starts, and Yamamoto and Sasaki and Glasnow, maybe they're a little bit more cautious with Glasnow just because of the injury history. Destin May maybe a little bit more cautious because of the injury history. But yeah, I mean, the fact is Roki Sasaki is used to throwing a bunch of pitches once a week.
Yeah, it should be one of those where obviously every game's going to be a little bit different. Every outing's going to be a little bit different. And I think the Dodgers' aim should be 6 innings, like from all their starters, whether that's, sometimes you get through 6 innings on 80 pitches, sometimes you get through 6 innings on 110 pitches. And obviously they're never going to push them beyond what they're comfortable with. But yeah, when you are going once a week, when you are seeing some of the effects of a bullpen that, had to fight its way through last season, Evan Phillips, even Michael Kopech, who was acquired later in the year, he threw a lot once he got to the Dodgers and in some big high leverage situations, and maybe a little bit of a lot of a bit different situation than he had in Chicago. So there's different things that the Dodgers are going to do. But yeah, I'm excited for Roki. I'm excited to see him in Japan. I feel like last year Yamamoto, the first star, you could see the nerves and everything else. Maybe being in Korea, obviously not the same as Japan as your hometown, or not hometown, but home country. Maybe that'll set up Roki for some better success. And the Cubs have some guys, a decent enough offense, but nothing kind of like the Padres had at the top of their order last year. So.
Yeah. So your final prediction for Roki Sasaki, I'll tell you mine. I'm saying Rookie of the Year with 23 of the 30 first place votes and finishing 9th in the Cy Young voting, but 3rd amongst Dodgers pitchers.
Yeah. I'll go Rookie of the Year without all those details, but I feel like he'll be Rookie of the Year unanimously.
All right. Sounds good.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Why play the season? Just get it done.
Yeah, just go out there. We'll talk back in September. We'll know what these guys are doing. We won't know the official numbers until November, but either way, we're going to talk about that. Hyeseong Kim, another new player to the Dodgers. He will not be in Japan. He will not be starting in any games for the Dodgers, at least for the time being. What does it mean with him going down to the minors? We'll get into it. Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the high protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you. I always miss this one. To help you keep you fuller longer. They are a perfect snack for when you're watching games. I got this bag right here that I've been going at the last few spring training games, and definitely something I'll be using this season for sure when I'm watching Dodger games. I'm personally a fan of the shell variety. Just I like the little, you got to make you work for the snack a little bit when I'm at home or even at a ballpark. There's travel when I'm on the road, it's a little bit harder to get cracking, especially if I'm driving or on a plane. I don't want to bother people, so you can get the ones without the shells. Either way, you like it. Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do, and it's the 9 essential amino acids that you need because it's the complete protein. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everyday by listening and watching every day. And if you're already on YouTube, you can check out Locked On Sports Day and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Jeff, we're going to talk about Hyeseong Kim as he was one of the players that was optioned today, along with Bobby Miller and along with guys getting reassigned to minor league camp and Giovanni Gallegos, Dalton Rushing, David Bote, Michael Chavis, and Eddie Rosario. We're going to talk about David Bote specifically next. Bobby Miller, kind of what we expected once he got hurt, right?
Yeah, one way or the other, we kind of expected him not to be on the opening day roster. Didn't know if that would be the injured list or the minor leagues. But yeah, I mean, he's got options available, so no reason for it not to be the minor leagues. And yeah, it's I guess that's the closest thing to a surprise of the guys we're not going to spend a segment talking about, but Kim and Bote, Kim, like you said, we'll talk about Bote in the next segment. Kim was like not even a surprise. Maybe it's newsworthy, but not surprising. I think that's how I described it to our insiders when I texted about it, because the fact is, when they made a point of pointing out that he could be sent to the minors, right around the time that they first signed him, and then he didn't hit well in spring training. It's like, and didn't even field well. It's not like he put on a defensive display where we have to have his glove in there. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for him to start the season in the minors, especially because he is working on a swing change. And would you rather have him on a plane to Japan and then, getting 2 at-bats across the span of 4 games, or in Arizona working on that swing change, taking 8 at-bats on the backfields every day, trying to figure it out and get ready to play in the big leagues?
I think the one clarity we got, obviously we had already, chalked up Kim to not starting the season with the Dodgers. The one thing of clarity we got is that Dave Roberts said he would start the year in AAA. The report the other day was that he could start in the minors or he could just remain in Arizona to continue working on his swing. I think, obviously he's remaining in Arizona right now for the time being. He's going to continue working on that swing. And then, starting in AAA is perfect. That's where you're going to get your reps. That's where you're going to get used to velocity. We've talked about this before where, AAA, you're not getting as good as pitchers overall, but you're going to get that velocity. There's plenty of guys popping 95 plus in the minor leagues, especially once you get to the bullpens, and most starters aren't going more than 5 innings anyway. So you're going to see a lot of those bullpen arms. So that's perfect. You get your reps. And the other part that we've talked a lot about is him getting those reps in center field. He played center field on Tuesday, and I'm sure they're going to continue to work him out there. If he can work out at center field, it just really helps the Dodgers out a little bit more because you can keep Tommy Edman at second, and realistically, they could go the route of a platoon if they do call him up. If if Pages ends up being the guy and he plays center field and he's batting against lefties, Kim could bat against righties, or however they want to do it. That would make the most sense. But yeah, it's one of those where it's kind of like you drafted a guy out of college and a senior out of college, and you don't want to wait too long, but he does need to get used to, hey, I'm a professional baseball player now, and I need to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and predictably, Chris Taylor's name has come up a lot on social media, in our chat here on this live episode, when talking about Kim, and, talking about Bote in the next segment, of, you know, if they're better than Chris Taylor, why is Chris Taylor on the roster instead of them, But for me, it's Hyeseong Kim has a future with the Dodgers over the next 4 years. Chris Taylor doesn't have a future with the Dodgers. Chris Taylor has a past with the Dodgers and a present with the Dodgers, but the Dodgers, I saw somebody in the chat say the Dodgers are just being cheap. They don't want to, because since they're paying Taylor, they don't want to cut him. And I don't think it's even
paying him either way. So
cheap. I don't think it's even remotely that. I think it's, do you put Kim on the roster to be the 26th man when he's not ready to start in the big leagues? And so what's going to be the best for his development? What's going to give you the best chance of having a good version of Hyeseong Kim later in 2025 and in 2026 through 29 when they have him under contract or whatever, whatever years it is? That's the question. And I feel like it's almost undeniable that the best thing for his development is to keep developing rather than, okay, you're a major leaguer now, go figure it out.
Yeah, it's kind of like Taylor on the roster in the postseason. Like, he hardly ever saw the field. He was on the field for Freddie's walk-off and, a couple other at-bats here and there. But, you didn't have to – you're not going to feel a need to play him. You're not going to feel a need to anything else. And, I feel like once he'll get a couple chances here and there early on, and then they'll kind of decide what they want to do from there. Hyeseong Kim, hey – we want you to go down, get some at-bats for a month, get more comfortable at center field, and then we're going to call you. I'm sure there's some communication, maybe not as simple as, hey, 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, whatever it is, but I'm sure they're telling them, you're not going to be down there long. We want you to have, get your it's kind of like any other rookie that they have or any other prospect they have. Don Rushing, the same. Is Don Rushing one of the 13 best position players on the Dodgers 40-man roster right now? Probably. More, yeah. Yes,
but he's not on the 40-man roster.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. But is he on there? Yeah. But is he going to be on the opening day roster? No, because there's it needs to make sense for the Dodgers, and they're not just going out there to have the best physical team available. It's to have the best working team available right now.
Yeah, you can only play nine hitters at a time, and like Richard Flores says here in the chat, it's better to have Chris Taylor sitting on the bench than Hyeseong Kim sitting on the bench. The same thing applies to Dalton Rushing. All these guys who are developing, Chris Taylor's job, the job he's best suited for right now is to wear a baseball uniform and not play very much. And that's what the last guy on the roster is going to do. He's going to wear a uniform and not play very much. And hopefully, they will get to the point where they can replace Taylor with a different veteran who, when he does rarely play, he will have a better chance of doing something good. And maybe that person will be David Bote, which we'll talk about in the next segment, but not right off the bat. And so Chris Taylor isn't good, but he is good at wearing a baseball uniform and not playing very much.
Yeah, once they decided to not start Bote in the major leagues, and that really, and obviously Hyeseong Kim having the little bit of struggles and working on that swing change that he did, that left the door there for Chris Taylor to just kind of stand there and open it when people come through, and keep tally of how many people are walking through, whatever you want him to do down there. And Dave Bote's who we're going to talk about next, because he had an incredible spring. We've advocated for him to be on the opening day roster, at least on the travel roster to Japan, and he won't be doing that. But there might be a reason for that that Jeff has a theory on, so we're going to get into that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you always talk to a real person. And for those trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, if you use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first, you'll get 5% off your first order. That's SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate those of you that are everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, now's the perfect time. We're a week away from seeing Dodger baseball that matters, and there's going to be a lot of Dodger baseball to talk about now until the end of October. So why not get your daily dose of Dodgers with us 30 minutes a day? You can subscribe and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. And if you just can't get enough Locked On Dodgers, you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. It's a text-based service where you get texts from us, keeping you up to date with Dodger news. And you also get an exclusive invite to our Discord server to talk Dodgers. So that's where that's at. And Jeff, David Bote was reassigned to minor league camp. He will not, or barring anything that happens in the next 2 weeks or so, will not be at Dodger Stadium for domestic opening day. Looks like it won't be traveling to Japan. But does this mean the end of Bote floating ideas, thoughts as a Dodger?
I don't think so. In fact, I think you could make a case that him being reassigned to minor league camp today actually shows that they do have high hopes for him to be a part of the organization, because I mean he's had a great spring. There's no question about it. But he is also, like we talked about with Kim, he's going through a swing change. He is, and obviously the results so far have been very, very good. I don't know that 3 weeks of results against mixed quality pitching is enough to say, okay, you are absolutely a part of our future. But I think they're hopeful. And so I think what this probably means is, again, like with Kim, we would rather have you in Arizona taking a bunch of at-bats against live pitching, continuing to hone in this new swing, make it second nature, and then, start the season in AAA and rake there. And then when you get to the point, okay, he had a great spring, and then he's had a great first month of the season in AAA, then I think you can be confident, okay, this swing change is real. And now we feel comfortable committing to him at the big league level. And obviously he probably has an opt-out date that the Dodgers know and we don't. That will come into play. I always think about Brandon Morrow in 2017, that opt-out. He made his debut with the Dodgers on Memorial Day that year and ended up being one of the best relief pitchers in baseball, when he only really got called up because he was going to opt out if he didn't. We don't know when David Bote's opt-out date is. Sometimes there's multiple opt-out dates. But the fact is, yeah, his best chance to contribute to the Dodgers in 2025, I think, is to keep locking in the swing change, keep mashing so that they can, and maybe, keep working at second base. I don't know if they have any concerns about him defensively or not. And then that opportunity is going to arise, whether it's, Miguel Rojas's inevitable IL stint at some point this year, or, whoever. People get hurt, and maybe if they are comfortable with him at second base, so he's enough of a utility player, maybe he is the one who finally gets them to say, all right, well, let's swap one veteran for another. Let's go with David Bote, who can hit, over Chris Taylor, who can't. Who knows? But I do think his best chance to contribute this year is to keep figuring out this swing change.
Yeah. If he had been kept around, if he had traveled to Japan, if he had ultimately been added to the 40-man, been added to the 26-man roster, it would have made complete sense, for us. It would have been like, oh yeah, he made a swing change. It seemingly worked well. Nobody else on the flip side of it really stepped up. And, he's a guy that can compete for some playing time on the Dodgers. The fact that it's not doesn't necessarily make it, the wrong decision, doesn't necessarily make it a bad decision. It's just a different decision. And, with the justification you laid out there, it makes sense. With the justification of, we don't need to bring you up right now. Like, if the Dodgers don't bring him up right now, if he doesn't play the whole month of April, but then, ends up becoming a Dodger in May and ends up being really good and ends up, being a starting player for the Dodgers, we're not going to care about what happened in April. The Dodgers aren't going to go 0 for the month. They're not going to, be significantly underwhelming because David Bote wasn't there in the month of April. And like I said, there might be an opt-out date that we don't know about, that we're not privy to, that, the Dodgers might be waiting for to make a decision there. If this opt-out date is May 1st, you know what, Chris Taylor, you have until May 1st to prove something. Or, Hyeseong Kim, you have until May 1st to show us that you're going to be ready to be in the majors this year. Or, whoever else. Or you have until May 1st to make sure nobody gets hurt. So there's a lot of different things. And, David Bote is not going to change the game for the Dodgers. So there's no rush to bring him up. But again, had he been brought up, had he started on the opening day roster, had he been there, he would have just been being rewarded for a hot spring. And, we would have been saying we would have been fine with it either way. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah, Richie in the chat says Bote came to the Dodgers so they could work their magic like they did with Max Muncy. And it's worth noting, Max Muncy spent the first year and a month within the Dodgers organization playing in AAA. He spent the entire 2017 season in the minors, came up in 2018 early-ish when there was an injury. Bote is also 6 years older than Muncy was at that point in time. And so probably isn't going to spend the whole year. Either he will get a shot with the Dodgers or he will opt out and go get a shot somewhere else. But yeah, the Dodgers have a pretty good track record of helping these guys get better, which is why Bote wanted to come to the Dodgers. He was thrilled when they called him early in the offseason, and it's all part of the master plan. And I do think that I do think we're going to see Bote this year. I think there's going to be, opportunities, whether it's injuries or ineffectiveness or whatever. And I think he's put himself near the top of the list of guy to get called up, especially because he's a veteran. He knows how to come off the bench and he's got positional flexibility. I wouldn't count on him being as impactful as 2018 Max Muncy was, but I would be surprised if David Bote doesn't make some sort of impact for the Dodgers this year.
Yeah, and if you're David Bote and you've watched the Dodgers the last few years, you've seen guys like Kevin Biggio and you've seen guys like Nick Ahmed, and you've seen a lot of these different types of players. Even a few years ago with who was getting playoff at bats for the Dodgers that we always bring up.
Did Billy McKinney?
Yeah, Billy McKinney, and the other one, the right-handed guy with the beard, who came up in a big spot.
I blocked all those things out. Oh,
but yeah, but
Junior.
Yeah, Stevenson. Yeah, there you go. So, like, if you've seen all these guys get at bats, and you're thinking I can be better than those guys, or at least the same as those guys, yeah, why not stick around with the Dodgers? And he's not hoping for an injury, but he'll definitely, if something happens, he'll definitely be ready to step up. And Eddie Rosario, also part of the one that got sent down. He had a couple homers this spring, but that's really all he had. He's another guy that you might just see because he's expendable. You can call him up and get rid of him in the same 1 week span, and you're not going to feel bad about it. You can't do that with some of these younger guys that may be better, and we may be knocking on the door of playing for the Dodgers this year, but you're not going to call them up for a week and then send them back down and have to make a 40-man roster move and waste an option year if you maybe wouldn't needed it. So yeah, Bote, Michael Chavis, another name that we didn't talk about at all this spring, but wouldn't be surprised if we saw him at one point just for a week or so and then go the way of all these other guys that we've been naming.
Yeah, although Michael Chavis, I'd kind of more expect to be the role of the who was it last year that the Dodgers had in AAA the whole year, some veteran that because they all run together, but they had some veteran infielder who they had signed, and we thought, oh, maybe we'll see him at some point when they have a need, and it never came to fruition. They never had enough of a need there. Catchers, you see that more often where, oh, yeah, like Chris Oakey. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Chris Oakey get called up and then DFA'd, if there's a little week long need for a catcher, just like Tony Walters in the past. And I can't remember the more recent one was, but that's kind of the role that some of these guys play. I'm a AAA catcher, which means I'm going to spend 11 days on a 40-man roster every year, and that will be enough to make it worth me continuing to play. And maybe once in a while I'll get to play half a season, and that'll hold me over for another couple of years. You don't see that as much outside the catcher position, but it happens.
Yeah, maybe pitchers, you might see that for the Dodgers. Demelson Lamet and Nabil Krismat last year. Like, those are guys are probably going to get, rings for their contributions, even as small as they ended up being or as big as they ended up being. But, there's a lot of service to be had from some of these guys, and, we'll see what ends up happening.
Chris
Owings?
The two guys I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Chris Owings and Alan Trejo.
Yeah, there you go. So, but yeah, I mean that we will learn more about the actual roster once they get to Japan. We know basically everyone that's traveling already. They'll have to make decisions of who's actually playing in the games that matter. But we are that much closer to seeing the Dodgers. I think Saturday going into Sunday is the first exhibition game, I believe. So
that's right. Yeah.
So there's a lot to be excited for. It's one of those times we have, essentially closed the book on Cactus League, and now we're just waiting for them to travel, see all the fun stuff they do out there, see all the fun stuff that's going on, and wake up early or not go to sleep, depending on how you're going to do it, and watch some games.
Yeah, all 4 games will be on Sportsnet LA, the 2 exhibition games and the 2 games against the Cubs. Steven Nelson and Eric Karras will be calling the 2 exhibition games. Then Joe Davis and Eric Karras will be doing the 2 games against the Cubs on Sportsnet LA. Fox will also be broadcasting them, but Joe will be doing them on Sportsnet LA. It should be fun time. I'm not a morning person, but I am looking for, and I guess maybe if we decide that we're just going to do live podcasts right after the Tokyo games, then I can just force myself to go to bed, because usually I'm up late doing this podcast, and so how am I going to get up early when I was just up late? But I guess we can go to bed early and then get up and podcast right after.
Yeah, that's definitely. Did we do that last year? I don't remember, but probably.
I can't remember. Well, we weren't really doing live back then very often, but yeah, I assume we did do episodes right after the games last year, but I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, but either way, yeah, we're going to be ready for it, and that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can be coming every day or by listening or watching every day, and you can make that easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. If you want to do something else on YouTube, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can find us, you can go beyond the podcast from Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can find us where we get podcasts and on YouTube. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at SnyDog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or if you're at home, text your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.